Hello and welcome to this week's Culture Conversations. I'm Danielle Peters, and as always, I'm sharing a reflection of the real conversations I've had with early learning leaders this week and what I'm noticing, what I'm learning, and what it might mean for you and your team. Now, every week I have the privilege of speaking with center directors, owners, approved providers, and leadership teams across the sector. Some conversations are with leaders that are exploring how to create this culture within their center for the very first time. Others are with our existing clients who are already doing the work and building something really special inside their services. And every single conversation gives me deeper insight into what leaders are navigating right now inside early learning. And this week was a big one because the theme that kept coming up again and again is this: culture can no longer be ignored. I started the week with a culture clarity call with a center director who has 15 years of early learning experience. She's experienced, thoughtful, clearly committed to child-safe culture, and is already doing so many brilliant things. She talked me through how they maintain visibility within the service and how they reduce blind spots and how they keep strong staffing ratios, how they communicate expectations with their team, and how seriously they take creating a safe environment for children, families, and their educators. And what stood out to me most was not that she didn't care about culture. She absolutely did. But what stood out was that she was asking me the question I'm hearing more and more often now. How do I actually show evidence of this culture? Not just how do I feel it, not just how do I believe it, not just how do I know we care, but how do I prove it? How do I make it visible and embedded? And how do I show that this commitment to child safety is real, understood, shared, and lived every day? And that right there is a shift. Because for so long, leaders have been able to say, we've got good team culture. We care about children. We have strong policies. We talk about safety. We're all good. But now the conversation is changing. Now it's becoming, can your team feel it? Can families see it? Can assessors sense it? Can your educators explain it? Will they protect it? Will they stand up for it? Can your culture be seen in action, not just written in a document? And that was such an important conversation because this director is not behind or unaware. She is doing what so many good leaders are doing right now. She's trying to work out how to take something they already value deeply and make it more visible, bring it to the forefront, more shared and owned and consistent. And that is exactly why I do the work that I do, because good intentions are not enough anymore. And the next call that really stood out was a current client who's getting back on track. And I actually love this conversation because it reminded me that getting back on track is still progress. And sometimes leaders think if momentum slowed down or things got busy or the full team didn't stay as engaged as they hoped, that somehow the opportunity was gone. But it's not. This conversation was about re-engaging the right people, bringing more leaders into their culture journey, and making sure expectations and standards are not just sitting with one person. That matters so much because one passionate leader cannot hold culture together forever on their own. At some point, the directors, assistant directors, and key influencers have to help carry it. They have to help define it, and they have to help protect it. And this call reinforced that culture gets stronger the moment it starts to become shared. But the biggest conversation of my week was an in-person catch-up with one of our approved provider clients who is across 4 centers. And wow, this conversation was big. There were parts of it that were deeply confidential and absolutely not for public wrap-up, but the overarching lesson was too important not to share. And what came through so clearly is that the sector is finally starting to speak the language I have been speaking for years. My client shared with me that in the new mandated child safe training from Gecko, for the first time ever, culture is right there at the beginning. Not hidden later, not treated as a side note or a PD motivation, and not tucked into policies and procedures, but culture, clear as day. And that was huge because for years, leaders have been overloaded with policies, compliance, checklists, procedures, and audits. And of course, those things are extremely important and they absolutely matter. But what my client said was so powerful is this: people get away with things in services when others walk past what doesn't feel right. And that is a culture issue. When people don't speak up, when they hesitate, when they second guess themselves and that gut feeling, when they assume someone else will handle it, when they see something but don't intervene, that is where culture becomes everything. And hearing her say that, the first 2 hours of the training is focused on center culture, honestly stopped me in my tracks because it confirmed what I have believed for such a long time. Child safe culture is not built by policy alone. It is built by people having the courage, confidence, and clarity to say, that doesn't look right. That's not how we do things here. I need to speak up. I need to step in. And that is culture. And that is why culture now belongs in the child safe conversation. And my client also shared something else that really stayed with me. She talked about how families often don't ask about their service rating, although of course they are meeting across all services. They ask themselves something much more meaningful. Does this place feel right? Is my child safe here? Does this service feel calm? Does it feel supportive? Does it feel safe? And that word came up again and again because families feel culture. Children feel culture. Educators feel culture. And now even assessors are paying closer attention to the feel, the energy, the vibe, not just the paperwork. And that is such an important shift for leaders to understand. Because if your culture only exists in documents, but not in the room, not in conversations, not in behaviors, not in support, not in accountability, then it is not embedded yet. And this is exactly why I keep saying that culture has to become visible, shared, owned, protected, lived, not just by you as the leader, but by your entire team. That was probably my biggest reflection from this week. The leaders I spoke to are not resisting culture. They are craving clarity around it. They want to know how to strengthen it. How do I show it? How do I get my team involved? And how do I stop carrying it all on my own? How do I create a culture that actually protects children, supports educators, and gives families confidence? And the answer is not another random PD. It is not another one-off motivational session. It is definitely not hoping that good people will just naturally keep everything on track. It is intentional culture work. It is giving leaders structure. It's helping teams create shared expectations. It's making values visible, and it's creating a language your team can use. It's building confidence for them to speak up, and it's reinforcing what right looks like. It's making sure culture is not left to chance. And so, if you are an owner, approved provider, senior leader, or center director listening to this message, here's the question I want to leave you with this week. If someone walked into your service tomorrow, would they only see compliance, or would they feel your culture? Would your team know how to describe it? Would they know what's expected? Would they back themselves to speak up? Would families feel the difference? And would children be safer because of the culture you have built? Because this is where this is heading. And honestly, I believe it's a really good thing. The sector is finally waking up to the fact that culture is not separate from child safety. Culture is what helps protect it. If that feels like the conversation you've been needing to have, I'd love to hear from you, because this is exactly the work we are doing with early learning leaders right now, helping them move beyond policies and good intentions to build a culture that is visible, consistent, shared, and truly lived. Keep blooming.